Welcome to NFL World, where NFL starts and ends. I'm your host, Jacob, and welcome to Deep Dive. This is the final episode of Season 1 of Deep Dive, and we jump into the NFC West, which is probably the most jaw-dropping division. It's not Home Alone levels of shock, but it's like when there's a shift in the NFL, it's always going to start in the NFC West. San Francisco's dominated that division for the last couple of years. The Rams have had their underlings. Seattle, same thing. Arizona's on the rise. So let's talk about the division, the team that won the division, and the LA Rams. This was not pretty. It was not. They got to week 10, week 12, and we thought they were dead, but they made it work. Matt Stafford was on TV saying, we need to find a way to pull ourselves together and make a playoff push. And we were like, yeah, okay, that's not going to happen. With Arizona going through it, and they were dominating at every level. But then you started seeing some cracks in Arizona, and they lost quite a few games in a row. Seattle, we thought, kind of fixed themselves a little bit. They had won 3 in the beginning of the year, and then lost 3, and that pattern continued. But then they were starting to straighten it out a little bit. Nope, fell back apart. So Seattle didn't do anything good. San Francisco just didn't wake up the entire season. They had so many injuries it made no sense. So they had injury problems in San Francisco. Arizona caved, and Seattle couldn't keep it together long enough to even say, okay, yeah, there's a chance they could win this thing. So the Rams did. It's a great coaching job by Sean McVay, more of a fall apart from the other teams in the division, but the Rams make the playoffs. They win a playoff game. They were supposed to play at home. They end up having to play in Arizona because of the wildfires. They win a playoff game. Then they go into Philadelphia, played a really tough football team, took them to the limit. They had a hard time against the run, but they were good. They were that close to winning, and they just couldn't pull it off. But it was a great job by the Rams. A really great job. Great coaching job. Great job by Matthew Stafford, who got beat up this year because the Rams' offensive line got beat up a lot this year with injuries. But when they were healthy, they were really good. The run game was pretty good. They had some fumbling issues, but they were really good when they didn't have those. Puka Nacua got banged up this year, but when he was on the field, he was excellent. Cup, again, didn't play a whole 17-game season, played 12. You were not going to pay a guy that much money to stick around if he was only going to play 12 games. So you cut him. Now he's in Seattle, which we will talk about Seattle in a little bit. The defense is what I want to talk about. This reminded me of the 2021 season. They win the Super Bowl. The next year, they're not so good. They struggled. And then 23 came around, 22-23 came around, and it worked. It just worked with the young talent that they had. Now Aaron Donald is gone. How's that going to work? They bring in Jared Verse and Braden Fisk from the University of Florida State. And it worked. They were able to pick up the pieces of that defense and become very good as a young unit. Their coverage was good. They didn't get a lot of sack numbers, that is true, but they did play pretty well, all things considered. So, that's props from my perspective. I will make note, what happens if Arizona doesn't fall apart, or Seattle, or San Francisco wakes up? We're probably not having this conversation. Now, let's jump into the Arizona Cardinals. This team was probably the most... I was shocked by this team, the way they played. They were good. Their run game was good. Their offensive line was good. They played it with a cohesive unit. That their offensive line coach, Clayton Adams, is now the offensive coordinator in Dallas because they loved how cohesive that offensive line was. Marvin Harrison Jr. was good. Kyler Murray, when healthy, he's been showing he's very good. They don't have a number two. Greg Dortch is a fun player, but they don't have a number two. You need to make moves so you can get one. Draft one, sign a free agent, whatever. You have to. Because that's what the difference between taking this team from one level to another level. Defensively, look, they played really well. At times not so great. The season kind of fell apart. I'm a little concerned about that. But as they continue to progress with Coach Gannon in year 3 now, you hope this defense becomes more cohesive. There is issues, don't get me wrong, but you're hoping with more time it kind of collects together. But I thought for a showing, really good. Needed another wide receiver, but I thought it was good. Definitely was shocked by Arizona the most this year. Now, before we jump into what happened in Seattle, you please like, comment, subscribe this video, share this video. It helps us out a ton, and it makes us, lets us see if you guys really like what we're doing here. So like, comment, and subscribe. It is absolutely free. Let's talk about the Seattle Seahawks. They reminded me of the first year under Mike McDaniel, the Miami Dolphins, when they were under Mike McDaniel the first year. They won 3 games, they lost 3 games, they won 2 games, they lost 2 games. Kind of how Seattle played this. Won 3 games, lost 2 games, lost 3, lost another. It was kind of how it operated. Won 3, lost 3, won 2, lost 2. Kind of how it worked. This team, the Seattle team, run defense is not their strongest. They did not play good on the run defense. They were bad. They were good in coverage. They didn't get a lot of sacks. It's a little concerning. The offensive line is not very good. Geno Smith got beat up a lot. Geno Smith was turning the ball over a lot because he was getting hit a lot. And that clock in your head is telling you get rid of the ball. And so he was just trying to get rid of it because he got beat up. The run game was pretty good when healthy, but it's not great. In Seattle, you cut Tyler Lockett, you trade DK Metcalf to the Pittsburgh Steelers, you sign Cooper Kupp, hoping that will help your issues, and pairing him with JSN. But you need to draft somebody. You need to draft somebody at wide receiver. You just need to do it. But for year 1, there was improvement. It's just we need to see continuous improvement throughout the year, not just a couple weeks of the year. And finishing up in San Francisco, man, did they have the injury bug. They were injured beyond belief. Debo was injured for a little bit, came back but didn't look great. He played weird. Not Debo standards of playing football. Then you have Ayuk got injured a lot, tore his ACL. Who knows when he comes back. Christian McCaffrey had the Achilles tendonitis in both legs. He missed the entire season, besides 3 games. Their second string running back was out. They're playing the third string guy, who then got out. The fourth string guy, it was not good. They had offensive line issues with injuries and some unfortunate situations with Trent Williams and Travarius Ward, with family issues that it's just you want to move on, and thoughts and prayers are with those 2 gentlemen. You had injuries with Dre Greenlaw, who tore his Achilles in the Super Bowl, only came back and played 3 games, and it's okay. Hufanga got banged up. I don't believe he played at all. Javon Hargrave missed time, and now he's in Minnesota. So he's gone. Banks was a free agent. Now he's in Green Bay. You just lost a lot of people. And I think this is kind of San Francisco's ability of saying, we got to reset completely. We just got to reset because what happened in, oddly enough to say, what happened in 2019 is still haunting. We have to strip it down completely and start again. So they did. Dre Greenlaw, Hafunga, now in Denver. So they got to make moves there. Defensive line, they got to make moves there. Wide receiver, they got to make moves there. You could say running back, depending on when Christian McCaffrey comes back, if he does come back. But this is what happens when you have a guy, a quarterback, who is looking for a new contract. And you got to pay him. This is what happens. You have to pay a guy money, a lot of money, because of how the quarterback are going to get paid now. You get quarterbacks making 60 or high 50s millions of dollars a year. You're going to have to do the same to Brock Purdy. By doing that, you got to pay a lot of money. It means you have to almost deconstruct your team to then construct it properly with a quarterback that's making that much money. It's a big process, but it's a process nonetheless. So I want to see what happens from that perspective. Look, they didn't play well. They did not play well. Injuries, absolutely, but they did not play well. They tried to hold it together, but it didn't work. My biggest concern wasn't the injuries. Those were a concern, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't my biggest concern. They had Nick Sorensen playing defensive coordinator. I didn't say was defensive coordinator, playing defensive coordinator. He was not good. There was obviously falls because you had D'Amico Ryan was your defensive coordinator. Before that, it was Robert Saleh, who is returned as defensive coordinator. You had Wilkes, you got rid of him, and now you had Nick Sorensen, and it just didn't work. Even though you can have the same system of how to play defense, it doesn't mean you'll play defense the same way. It means one coach will think in third down situation, this is what I'm doing. And then another coach is going to say, in third down situation, I'm doing something completely different than the first guy. That's what they do. Nick Sorensen was not good at it. Just wasn't. Sorensen, is now the special teams coordinator in Dallas. Where he played. He was also a player as a special teamer, and he was a coach as a special team coach. So it was too much of a jump for him. Wow, Saleh's back. You're hoping they can rebuild this defense. You're hoping that the offense finds its groove again, and you're hoping that when you pay Brock Purdy, you can build a good enough team around him to help benefit him in the best possible ways. This division is the most jaw-dropping because you never expected this to happen. I never expected the Rams at week 10 or week 12 to find a way to pull it back together again and make a playoff push and win their division. Never saw it happening. Never saw Arizona losing the game middle to late of the season. Never saw Seattle not fixing what they were trying to accomplish. And never saw San Francisco just complete, gone. They were fast asleep in hibernation the whole season. Never saw that coming. But it did happen. It was not a good showing by these teams. But the Rams won this division. Has to be said. San Francisco, stripping it down and rebuilding. Arizona on the rise. Seattle, continuing process. But all things need to be said. And that's what this season's all. That's what this series is all about. A deep dive in a look, looking into every single team and every single division. For NFL World, I'm Jacob Hebert, And this is the final episode of season 1 of Deep Dive. Out.